She was just another black woman pulled over for no reason by officers Johnson and Miller. With arrogance and unchecked power, they falsely accused her of resisting arrest, dragging her from her car in handcuffs. Humiliated but not broken, Agnes Tailor vowed justice. But the officers had no idea who they had just arrested. Within weeks, the tables turned. A lawsuit, national outrage, and an internal investigation put them under fire. But their real nightmare began when they walked into court, expecting a lenient judge, only to see Agnes Tailor presiding over their case. As evidence mounted and victims stepped forward, the officers watched their power crumble. The courtroom drama explodes as shocking evidence of systemic racism is revealed, turning a personal vendetta into a battle for justice that will change the city forever. What happened next shocked everyone. Agnes Tailor is a talented attorney who fights for civil rights. After a long day in court, she's driving home when she sees flashing red and blue lights in her rearview mirror. She lets out a sigh, knowing she's about to be pulled over for no real reason. Two police officers, Johnson and Miller, approach her car with an air of arrogance. Agnes stays calm, carefully pulling out her ID and registration. However, this isn't just a regular traffic stop. The officers question her in a harsh manner, implying that she doesn't belong in the upscale neighborhood she's driving through. When Agnes stands up for herself and asserts her rights, Officer Johnson loses his temper. He falsely accuses her of resisting arrest. Even though she remains composed, Agnes is dragged out of her car, handcuffed, and put in the back of the police car. Sitting there in silence, feeling humiliated, Agnes makes a promise to herself to ensure the act of racial profiling must stop, and these arrogant men will regret treating her this way for no reason other than the color of her skin. At the police station, Agnes is detained, fingerprinted, and made to spend the night in a cold, dirty cell. The officers treat her like a criminal, exchanging sarcastic looks. However, they don't realize who she really is. Agnes has spent years fighting against unfair treatment and racism in the legal system. In the morning, a young public defender recognizes her. "Wait, you're Agnes Tailor, the civil rights lawyer?" Suddenly, the room goes quiet, and the officers start to feel uncomfortable. When word gets out, a senior officer rushes in to drop the false charges against her. But Agnes isn't going to let this go without a fight. She demands justice, knowing that this isn't just about her. It's about countless other black men and women who often don't have the chance to stand up for themselves. Johnson and Miller have no idea that they've just ignited a significant battle. A few weeks later, a formal complaint is made against officers Johnson and Miller by some maltreated individuals. Agnes, now a free woman, starts to gather her evidence, using her sharp thinking and legal knowledge. She uncovers shocking information. These two officers have a pattern of racial profiling. The local news hears about the situation, and soon there is increasing pressure on the police department. Johnson and Miller, who once laughed at Agnes while she was locked up, are now facing an internal investigation. They exchanged worried looks. They thought she would keep quiet like so many others have. Then, a major development occurs. They are being sued for wrongfully arresting, detaining, and violating civil rights. However, what worries them is the news that they will have to appear before a judge known for her strong commitment to fairness and justice. They just haven't found out yet who that judge is. On the day of the court hearing, Johnson and Miller entered the courtroom, grinning with confidence beside their lawyer. They were hoping for a lenient judge who would overlook their charges. Then, the doors swung open. When Agnes Tailor walked onto the judge's bench, a wave of nervousness swept over the officers. She was the very woman they had arrested and humiliated, and now she held their future in her hands. The chatter among the people in the courtroom grew louder. The officer's lawyer quickly stood up, demanding that she step down from the case. But Agnes, calm and collected, replied, "If you haven't done anything wrong, you have nothing to worry about." A heavy silence filled the room. At that moment, they realized the truth. They were facing a serious battle for their futures. The trial kicks off with an unexpected twist. The prosecution shows a video from a police officer's camera that demonstrates how officers Johnson and Miller escalated a routine traffic stop without any real reason. In the video, Agnes and other complainants remain calm and composed, which highlights the officers' aggressive behavior. But the most powerful moment comes when other victims come forward to share their stories. A young black father, a retired school teacher, and even a former police officer. Each of them has been unfairly targeted by Johnson and Miller. As each person speaks out, the two officers become visibly uncomfortable, sinking deeper into their seats. This trial isn't just about Agnes anymore. It's revealing a troubling pattern of racism that has gone unchecked. And people all across the country are paying attention. Inside the courtroom, anxiety fills the room. Johnson, who used to be so sure of himself, is starting to fall apart. He realizes how much is at stake for their futures and suggests they consider a plea deal, admitting to their mistakes. Miller, however, reacts strongly. "Admit we did something wrong? Not a chance. We need to stand our ground," he insists. The tension between them rises sharply. Johnson feels the pressure mounting and begins to secretly work out a deal that would let him testify against Miller in exchange for a lighter punishment. Meanwhile, Agnes sits quietly observing from a distance. She watches the men and remains unimpressed, having encountered many like them throughout her life, confident when they think they have the upper hand, but crumbling when faced with real consequences. Miller takes the stand, exuding confidence and calm, until Agnes Tailor starts asking him questions. She methodically breaks down his credibility, using his police reports to expose inconsistencies in his story. As the contradictions pile up, his lies begin to fall apart right before everyone's eyes. The jury is captivated as Agnes skillfully dismantles every excuse he made for the arrest. Then comes the final nail in the coffin, Johnson's testimony. "We knew she hadn't done anything wrong," Johnson admits, his voice trembling. "We just didn't like how she spoke to us." The courtroom bursts into commotion. Miller's expression turns to one of fury. He feels betrayed. But the damage is done, and the verdict is fast approaching. The jury is weighing their decision, and you can feel the tension in the air. When they finally come back, the foreperson stands up and delivers shocking news that echoes throughout the city. "We find the defendants guilty." Gasps fill the courtroom. Johnson lowers his head into his hands, overwhelmed, while Miller tightens his jaw, struggling to accept what just happened. The judge quickly hands down a severe sentence, firing them from their jobs, taking away their pensions, and starting formal charges against them. Their careers are over, and their names are tarnished forever. But Agnes is just getting started. As the officers are led away in handcuffs, Agnes stands tall, her voice steady, yet resonant with authority. She addresses the courtroom, her words cutting through the tension like a sharp blade. "You truly believed that your badge granted you immunity," she asserts, her gaze unwavering. "You thought that your position of power could shield you from the repercussions of your actions. But today, you've learned an undeniable truth. No one is above the law." Johnson, weary and visibly worn down by the weight of his choices, lifts his gaze for the first time. Regret flickers in his eyes, a moment of dawning realization that perhaps he misjudged his invincibility. Beside him, Miller stands with an air of defiance. He scoffs dismissively at Agnes's words, his arrogance now a futile shield against the reality unfolding around him. As he is escorted from the courtroom, his earlier confidence crumbles, leaving nothing but a hollow echo of his bravado. The spectators in the gallery watch intently, their breaths held in anticipation as the wheels of justice turn. Today, they witness the long overdue accountability that many believed would never come, a moment that reverberates through the community like a powerful thunderclap, signaling that justice, though sometimes delayed, is finally being served. Months later, the city undergoes a transformative overhaul of its police system. In a landmark decision, officials establish a new oversight committee tasked with ensuring accountability and transparency in police operations. Alongside this, all officers must complete mandatory training focused on addressing and mitigating racial bias, fostering a more equitable approach to law enforcement. Amidst these changes, Agnes stands confidently in front of a group of eager new police recruits, her voice steady and passionate. She educates them about civil rights, emphasizing the profound significance of justice, not just as a concept, but as a vital practice that honors the dignity of every individual. Her insights delve deep into the historical injustices that marginalized communities have faced, urging the recruits to understand the weight of their roles as protectors of the law and advocates for the public. Meanwhile, Johnson, now relegated to a low-paying security job, sits in his dimly lit apartment, watching Agnes's speech unfold on the evening news. As her empowering words resonate through the screen, he lets out a deep, heavy sigh, reflecting on the choices that led him to this moment. The realization of his past decisions hits him hard, highlighting the chasm between his current circumstances and the changes taking place in the community. For Agnes, this moment embodies something far greater than her personal journey. It symbolizes a collective struggle for justice and equality for all Black individuals who have been unjustly targeted, historically silenced, or dehumanized by systemic oppression. She feels a profound sense of responsibility to amplify their voices and bring about meaningful change. This pivotal moment marks just the beginning of a larger movement. Agnes is committed not only to advocating for reform, but also to inspiring others to join in the fight for a society where fairness prevails, and every person is treated with the respect they deserve.